is not negatively impacting. I'm answering your question because Iran's regime is not negatively impacting America on a day-to-day basis.
When the leader of Iran says death to America, why doesn't that concern you?
That's a chant. And by the way, I want to be very clear. Why are they chanting death to America? Why are they chanting that? That's kind of a random thing. Like, I know,
because they want Americans dead.
But why do they want? Why are they specifically chanting as opposed to saying, I don't know, death to China or death to Russia? What is it specifically about America?
Well, they say death to America, death to Israel, death to the United Kingdom, actually.
Oh, okay.
Death to pretty much anyone that wants to stand up to them.
Could have had something to do with our actions in the Middle East is why I'm saying that we need a change in foreign policy. It maybe has something to do with just like killing 1 million Iraqi civilians, okay, because Bibi Netanyahu got on a congressional stage and said there are weapons of mass destruction, and we took that to the bank, and there actually were no weapons of mass destruction, so we just killed 1 million. It could have something, I could be crazy, it could have something to do with our actions in the Middle East, the fact that we have 2,000 troops stationed in Syria right now under the guise of saying that we're fighting ISIS, while at the same time we know that Bibi Netanyahu funded the al-Qaeda adjacent front because he wanted to overthrow Syria. And they, again, expand their borders, immediately take on territory and sell us absolute nonsense. We're talking about funding Hamas. Bibi Netanyahu funded Hamas. There is footage of Bibi Netanyahu saying this stuff on camera. So it's just so ridiculous to me to pretend that they're in some predicament, that they may be eradicated soon, which is why they have to keep funding all of these terrorist groups and then pretending that they're victims of terror, when in fact they are the people that are imparting it worldwide. You know, I just think that, like I said, Generation 9/11 has grown up, and I think that our eyes are very clear here, and we recognize that our relationship with Israel has become increasingly problematic, and it always was problematic. So I'll again ask the questions, Piers. I'm asking you because we're having a conversation. Yeah. Name something positive that our Zionist AIPAC foreign policy has brought to America.
Well, all right, guys, we're going to get right into it, man. We're going to get right into a lot of developments going on in the Middle East. Obviously, we're following the very fragile ceasefire that was brokered by the man-child president that we have running the country, guys. Man, Donald J. Trump had an arranged marriage between Iran and Israel. It was imposed. An hour later, Israel breaks the ceasefire, and then everybody's like, well, that's not a surprise. They broke 1,982 ceasefires in their entire 50-year lifespan, right? So 75-year lifespan now. So Trump was livid, right? Trump did what no president in the United States has ever done in their entire careers, guys. You got to give it up to Trump, man. He called them out for it. He called Israel. He said Israel did something wrong. Holy shit, bro. Let's get into this clip.
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too. Are you questioning if Israel is committed? Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I'd never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
Okay, guys, so there he is, man. He called them out, and I mean, that's like if it was Biden was still president, he would have said like, no, there's no way Israel would have violated the ceasefire. Israel follows all the rules. I mean, it was Iran. Iran launched a missile, and it misfired, and Israel's the most moral army in the world, and they've never broken a ceasefire. You would have heard that type of rhetoric. So, moving on, man. Now, you know, the media is portraying the objectives of the war, and they're trying to make it seem like, because Trump has an ego, obviously, right? He doesn't want to tell everybody the obvious that attack on Iran did absolutely nothing. He attacked 3 empty nuclear facilities, right? So there's this whole campaign, and then they bring Iran's nuclear weapons program back by decades, and it's irreparable, and they dropped a damn near a nuclear bomb on the facility, and they notified them before, and they didn't have time to remove the centrifuges, even though they knew like a week before that they were going to drop the bombs there, and whole load of bullshit, right? So, and again, this is all being circulating while like the real ones know like they already got the shit, okay? They already got the work. They moved it to a different trap house. All right, let's put it that way. They got the shit, okay? A lot of high-profile Pentagon officials, people that were formerly in the government, the CIA, have come out and said this. It's nothing new. It's old technology. They could have had it 30 years ago. The only thing that's preventing them from admitting it is Russia. Actually, one of the biggest allies. Get this, they're one of the largest allies that Iran has. Russia and China don't actually want them to have the nuke, and that's guaranteeing their survival, guys. Russia and China won't let Iran fall, regardless of what people want to say, like, oh, Putin's focused on Ukraine and he's not going to get involved and this and that. And trust me, guys, coming down to it, like, they don't want a pro-Western regime bordering their countries like Ukraine did to Russia. That's fucking dangerous, especially, like, Ukraine was already a headache for Russia. They had NATO spying on them on their borders, like, through Ukraine. You think they want Iran, that vast of a landmass, a pro-Western government where the U.S. installs a U.S. base to spy on Russia and China? Because, see, Trump wants to stabilize the Middle East to get to China. That's the whole thing, right? If he can stabilize the Middle East, now he has leverage over China's bordering Iran. You see the game? So, anyways, guys, so all that, bullshit talk, and, Trump is acting like he conducted the largest strike. Look, let's watch this clip where he compares the U.S. bombing of the nuclear facilities to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Let's take a
But had we not succeeded
look at
with
this
that hit,
here.
that hit ended the war. That hit ended the war. I don't want to use an example of Hiroshima. I don't want to use an example of Nagasaki. But that was essentially the same thing. That ended that war. This ended that with the war. If we didn't take that out, they'd be fighting right now. But had
Okay, so, and by the way, guys, this kind of, a lot of people don't understand the power of these B-2 bombers and the amount of force. All of those that were dropped, including like the Tomahawks that they launched from the sea onto that facility, was exactly about the same power of a nuclear bomb. So they dropped almost an atomic bomb without the radiation on that facility, right? Now, of course, it's like buried 800 meters below the ground, and, that's a whole another issue there. So it's deterred from, the largest of blasts you can think of, right? So anyways, so everybody's like, okay, most rational people are like, okay, well, Iran is, they're not that stupid, right? Like they it's a country who's been self-sufficient, amongst the harshest sanctions and isolation throughout the entire world. They've been able to survive economically. They've become a superpower in the Middle East. These people, on average, have some of the highest IQs in the world. So they're not gonna have all their shit in one fucking location, Fordo nuclear facility, like as if everything that they need to build the bomb, the enriched the uranium, right? Which now the IAEA director has come out and said that there's like 900 pounds of uranium missing, that they have no idea where it's at. This is all, we're going to get into what exactly Iran's stance is on the IAEA now, but let's read this. So a report came out earlier saying that CNN, that the initial U.S. intelligence assessment says that U.S. didn't destroy. Yeah. So somebody from the U.S. intelligence, leaked a document, essentially a top secret preliminary battle damage assessment leaked by an intelligence community insider, and it revealed that the strikes only set back Iran's nuclear and they're saying maybe might be the case, right? They don't even know this. Like they're not even aware if this is even a fact or not. But they're saying they set the program by months, so not decades, or they didn't completely destroy it. They set it back by months, and essentially they didn't do shit. Let's just make it simple for everybody.
About the battle damage that resulted from those U.S. military strikes on these 3 Iranian nuclear facilities over the weekend. And as you said, it was produced by the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is the Pentagon's intelligence arm. And it is worth noting that it is a very early assessment. The strikes were only a matter of days ago, and the intelligence community is still gathering intelligence. They are still working to come up with a full, comprehensive picture of what exactly happened here. But based on a battle damage assessment that was carried out by U.S. Central Command, essentially looking at the images and looking at what was actually damaged, the Defense Intelligence Agency has assessed that the core components of Iran's nuclear program are largely intact, and that Iran's nuclear program has essentially only been set back by months. Now, we presented this information to the White House for comment, and White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, she did acknowledge the existence of this assessment, but she said in a statement that the administration disagrees with it. She said, quote, "This alleged assessment is flat out wrong and was classified as top secret, but was still leaked to CNN by an anonymous low-level loser in the intelligence community. The leaking of this alleged assessment is a clear attempt to demean President Trump and discredit the brave fighter pilots who conducted a perfectly executed mission to obliterate Iran's nuclear program. Everyone knows what happens when you drop 30,000.
Anyway, so his mouthpiece, this clown here, who's his this man-child's pretty much his mouthpiece on a daily basis, says that some low-level loser leaked these documents, right? That was their only response to, by the way, to the leak, right? They didn't say whether it was true or not. Well, they try to deny it, but obviously, when you have someone who's assessing the battle damage, he's actually in the intelligence community and has knowledge of this type of stuff, guys, and how to assess like what the actual damage was based on the logistics and the different factors, it being buried like 800 meters below the ground, and if they had the chance to move the centrifuges and all that. So basically, Trump's trying to market it as like that this was his Nagasaki, Hiroshima moment for Iran, and they've completely like destroyed the regime. And obviously the American public's so low IQ, and they consume like mainstream media still to this day. They don't even know what's going on. They're gonna swallow it and be like, oh, okay, yeah, my President Trump got rid of the nuclear program, just like they did with assassinating all these other, when they came out and said, oh, we assassinated Osama bin Laden, when we had reports that, this guy was already killed like years ago. And they're like, oh, we threw him over the ocean. That's why we can't see the body, So, I mean, this is the type of shit. This is all marketing and propaganda porn. Let's call it that. It's propaganda porn. Okay. But other sources of media where that people that have insider information on what's going on, who know people, are coming out and obviously saying the opposite. All right. Steve Bannon is a guy that he has people working closely with Pentagon officials, and he even meets with Trump like face to face, and so Steve Bannon says the ceasefire was really to save Israel's ass. All right, because you gotta understand, you gotta understand that Israel's actually like a U.S. base. It's a giant country that's very essential and important for the United States. It's their proxy in the Middle East. Okay, so they're not trying to destroy, they don't want that country destroyed. Iran hitting Unit 8200 Mossad, and they hit a whole bunch of other highly sensitive military installments, and they were cyber hacking all this crazy shit that, so Iran knows that America and Israel are tied to the hip via their intelligence, right? Let's play Steve Bannon's clip. I like what I heard.
Yesterday, they took this ceasefire was as much to save Israel. That's the hidden story here. They bit off way more than they could chew. They were played out as far. Yesterday was a brutal day for the citizens of Israel. Took horrible incomings, particularly in Tel Aviv, and I guess Beersheba also. They needed this because they were running out of defensive ammunition. And President Trump stepped in there with the help of Qatar. Look, we've come a long way since 7 years ago when Qatar, would not work with us on stopping the financing of Islamic terrorism, the financing of it. And they come a long way. They've stepped in the middle of the situation in Gaza, and they stepped in the middle here, and President Trump is going out of his way to praise them. And he's not going out of his way to praise Netanyahu's government, which I think is getting to be an issue. Yesterday, they took this season.
All right, man. So, and essentially, so the actual, the real story behind all the propaganda porn that they're feeding us is that Israel's running out of interceptors. Israel's about the size of New Jersey. These missiles were carrying 2-ton warheads. Right? They can't sustain a long-term conflict with Iran. So Bibi's like, yo, stop it. Let's stop it. So he was actually running into Trump saying he wants to end this shit. Okay? They're not stupid. And what was the result of Trump's attack on the nuclear facilities? Well, you guys want to hear what the result is? I'm about to give you guys a result here, man. And this is not, I'm like, look, dude, I'm not taking sides here. I'm not shitting on anyone, that's like, hey, we got to take these people out, or they feel like that they're a threat to, Americans abroad and this and that. But check this out, man. So IAEA claims 900 pounds of enriched uranium missing in Iran. We don't know where the whereabouts of nearly 900 pounds of enriched uranium that may belong to Iran following the U.S. strikes. And then this morning we have the Iranian Shura Council officially ratifies with unanimous approval of 221 members the decision to suspend Iran's cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency. So there you have it, guys. They're kicking the IAEA officials. And so right here, they're kicking the IAEA officials out of their country because, for one, Rafael Grossi, whatever the fuck his name is, he was leaking nuclear scientist's name to the Mossad, so they've been compromised, and they don't trust them anymore. And they're like, dude, and this was actually, the evidence was provided to them via Russia. They're like, Russia has intelligence that IAEA officials were name dropping the nuclear scientists who were savagely murdered by Israel. Not only were they doing that, they were giving Israel intel on exactly the whereabouts of their nuclear program and very highly sensitive shit. So essentially Iran's like, all right, get the fuck out of the country. And I'm surprised they didn't know about this earlier, that this might be a possibility, that these people could spy and be so compromised that they're essentially, it's like you're bringing Mossad to your fucking country. You know what I mean? So yeah, man, this resulted in Iran becoming even more distrusting of the West, more hostile to Trump, right? And more than likely now they're like, hey, fuck the IAEA. We're building the bomb, quote unquote, because they already have it. And essentially, they're not putting their trust in international organizations anymore, not the UN or any of these international organizations, because they're all compromised and bribed by the West. So why would they interact with them or do anything with these people? You know what I mean? So major fail, guys. The only good thing that came out about this was the ceasefire. So thank God there's a ceasefire, and we don't like war, man. So thank God there's a ceasefire. Hopefully it will hold. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, man. Like, comment, subscribe.